Hello everyone. So let us talk about this question on the community. Now, this question, the answer is of course very simple, but I of course want to give you a bit more background and how you should be careful about doing these changes in your Jira instance. So the question is about changing the default filter editor to admin. Now, when I create a new filter the default for the filter editor is private. I want to change it to be admin. How can I do that? So let us first try to understand what this user is trying to do. So basically, when you create a new filter in Jira, I'll probably go to advanced filter and I'll just save it. Basically, when you save a new filter, like new filter, submit, you do have this option here where if you go to the edit permissions, the thing that you can do here is you can change the viewer and you can also change the editor. Now the problem is if you go to your Jira configuration and if you go to, of course you need to be Jira administrator, and if you go on the left hand side there is something called as default user preferences, and here there is an option called default sharing for filters and dashboards. Now first of all, this default sharing for filters and dashboard, it is set to public, and if you're on cloud, I think this is basically this actually means that anyone in your organization can basically see this filter. So this is slightly different from the question, because the question is about not really the default access but who can be the editor, which I don't really think we can modify, or there is like a default setting for it. For example, if I change it to private, let us see how this works. If I change it to private, now of course the default sharing is private, and if I go back to my filter, let us create a new filter and save it as all issues new, and if I submit it, it will get saved straight away. But if I go to the details and if I go to the edit permissions, it says viewer is private and editor is also private. So you can actually make it as public, and if you make it as a public, then the viewer will be my organization. Like anyone who has access to your site can or your Jira instance, they can access the filter. So I think, and first of all, the question was actually about changing the editor to administrator, which I don't really think you can. I don't really see any option here in the default filter configuration. So I think there is like a feature request. There should be a feature request. I think there is one feature request. Also at the same time, if we talk about the viewers, I think from my experience, I think you should keep it as again, it can be a bit difficult because each organization is different, but in majority of cases, I would say keep it as my organization, or basically your default sharing should be public, so that people, when they create a new filter, they don't really have to share it, because it is actually a problem when you are working in Jira with users. Of course, there will be a point where each and every Jira user will create a filter, because I think filter is like one of the core feature in Jira, and they have to create a filter to do something. But even after creating a filter, even if they know how to create a filter, sharing it is not really obvious. And to be honest, even I forget it, although it's annoying. Normally, when I have to create multiple filters, I try to do it using REST API, because in my REST API, I have like this configured. But the thing is that when you're doing it, of course, manually and from the interface, you have to basically keep these things in mind. And on a regular basis, I have seen where people create a filter and they share the link, but the other person is not able to view it. It is of course a bit confusing, and it can be a bit embarrassing sometimes. Let us say you're sending a link to someone in management. They open a link. First of all, it is always difficult to convince people, especially management, to use Jira, look at Jira report, not really a PPT. But if you're sending them a link, make sure it works. And I think keeping it by default public in the default configuration, the user default preference, I think that is, from my experience, in majority of cases, is a wise choice. All right, that is it. That is all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new. Thank you very much. Bye bye.